who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. We're in Philippians 1 today. So it was the Beatles who sang, "All You Need Is Love." Love, love, love. Remember that? The Beatles sang, "All You Need Is Love," and as it turns out, they were wrong. In 1 Kings chapter 16, we read this very famous story of Solomon and the two moms. One who's come in and says, "We both had little children," and that woman there, she rolled over on her child and the child died. And then when I came back, she switched the babies. And the other woman says, "That's not how it happened at all. Actually, the opposite happened. She took my kid." And Solomon sits there, and on that day, he needed more than love. He needed discernment. He needed wisdom. Remember the story of Genesis 3. Eve is tempted by the snake in the garden. God says, "Do not eat." And the snake says, "Go ahead and eat. It will make you like God." And on that day, Eve needed more than love. It might have been, she said, "Oh, the fruit looks so good. I just love it." Or the snake, "They're so cute. They're cuddly. I love that kind of thing." What she needed on that day was a lot more than love. And the truth is that we all do all the time. All of us, all the time, are dealing with and asking and having to cope with relational questions. Who should I marry? Who should I date? Who should I trust as a friend? They seem good, but are they good? Those kind of questions come up for us all the time, do they not? Relational questions. How about work questions? What should I do for work? If you're young this morning, 11, 12, 13, 14, you're asking those kind of questions. What should I do for work? If you are old, you may be asking the same things. What should I do for work? Many of us who have been retired, you still have questions around not necessarily what should I do for money, but what should I do with my time? What should I do for work? How can I still be productive? What should I do for work? For some of us, the question is, should I stay where I am at work? Or should I go somewhere else? On that day, you need more than love, if you're going to understand that. How about church questions? Where should I go to church? How do I know that they will lead me in the right way? What signs do I look for? How do I know? So we are all the time dealing with friendship and relational questions. We're dealing with work questions. We're dealing with church questions. And in order to answer them, we were going to need both, here's the sermon, both love and discernment. You know, the Beatles sang, "All You Need Is Love," and they were wrong. But, you know, Tina Turner, she had a different song. She said, "What is love but a secondhand emotion?" Yeah, some of you were like, "I have no idea what I was talking about," and then some of you were getting right into it. Yeah. If that's your theme song, I'm sorry. She was wrong too. You need both love and discernment in order to live this Christian life well. You can think about it like a traffic light. Traffic lights up top, red, and then yellow, and then green, or did I reverse it? It's supposed to be green up top. Yeah, it's green. But three colors, right? Green, red, and then in the middle, yellow. I would consider that and think about this. You might picture love as all green light. You know, go. Love believes the best. Love is warm. Love is welcoming. It's optimistic. How's it going? Is that going to be a good decision? Oh, yeah, it's going to be just fine. Go, go, go. Don't look back. Just go. Green light. Well, discernment is a lot more of a red light. It's a whole lot of stop. That is, it doesn't really necessarily believe the best. Very often it's believing, well, the worst. It sees the problems that are coming, and it tends to be distrustful. So if love is the green light, then, well, the red light is discernment. And what I'm suggesting today is we need both. It'd be something like a yellow light that is forward, but be careful. Forward, but be careful. I suggest to you in the beginning of this sermon, before we even get to our text, that we need more yellow light Christians today. Christians who pour their lives into the lives of other people, fully knowing the risks. C.S. Lewis kind of famously said it this way: to love at all is to be vulnerable. Love anything and your heart will be wrung, possibly broken. If you want to make sure of keeping it intact, you must give it to no one, not even a pet. To love at all is to be vulnerable. Very often what we have even in churches today is we have people who are loved, but they don't see the dangers. Or all because they see the dangers, they refuse to love. We need both. We need Christians who do not buy things they do not need because they saw a commercial. We need Christians who will not just suddenly jump at every new technology or every toy until they think about it first, who are not ruled by impulse or the excitement of a new thing. Why? Well, 1 Corinthians 10 says this. 1 Corinthians 10:23. This is a helpful thing for our day. All things are lawful, not all things are profitable. All things are lawful, not all things edify. So we need to think not just about what I can do, what I'm allowed to do. We actually have to think about what's helpful, what's good, what's best. You may have heard this phrase that the good is the enemy of the best. We need Christians also who are much more like the Bereans than the Athenians in the book of Acts. You know what the Athenians are like in the book of Acts? That they're said this way, they're described this way. This is Acts chapter 17, verse 21. All the Athenians and the strangers visiting there used to spend their time in nothing other than telling and hearing something new. What they're interested in is new ideas, cool ideas. Check this YouTube video out. The Bereans, on the other hand, are like this. This is also in Acts chapter 17, verse 11. They received the word of Paul with great eagerness, examining the scriptures daily to see whether or not these things are true. So one hears it, and what they're listening for is, ooh, cool idea, never heard that before. And other ones are saying, is that true? And they're comparing it to the Word of God. We need Christians who are more interested in truth than exciting. As I look back on my own life, and as I have pastored now for it's almost 20 years, this is sort of, in loving you, I'm offering this to you to think about. Most of the major mistakes that we have made in our lives comes from either a lack of love or a lack of discernment. We can trace like a line, a map in our lives. Either a lack of love or a lack of discernment has been the key to the problems in our lives. Think of broken relationships, a lack of discernment. How many people have said, I trusted him because I loved him, but my eyes were blind. I couldn't see past the skin of it. But sometimes also it's not just a lack of discernment, sometimes it's a lack of love. That is, she said that she was really sorry. And I think she meant it now. I can see 5 years later that she meant it, but at the time I hated her so much I would not listen. Broken relationships can come from both a lack of discernment and a lack of love. How about bad work environments? A lack of discernment. The bosses sometimes come and they say, he promised me that he was equipped. He showed me the degree. He said he could do the job. I didn't bother to check, and now I'm stuck with this guy. Or it can be the other way. If you're an employee, they promised me really good working conditions. They promised me this amount of money. They promised me that they wouldn't work me to death. And now that I'm in, well, they're killing me. A lack of discernment can impact our lives very deeply when it comes to work. But also so can a lack of love. Some workers or some bosses have to say things like this: she was a really good worker, but I got impatient one day and I fired her. Or, oh man, that was a good place to work. And I couldn't see it. I got greedy and I just walked away. See, a lack of love can do it just as much as a lack of discernment. How about bad church situations? Lack of discernment. He was such a good speaker. He looked the part. I never really bothered to ask what he believed. There was such a good feeling in the air that I never really asked, hey, what's going on in your family life? It's a lack of discernment. But it can also be from a lack of love that bad church situations happen. That is, you can sometimes look back and you'll know people like this. You can say, that church loved me again and again, but I was too full of fear to let it in. That can happen. Here's Paul in the book of Philippians praying not just for love and not just for discernment, but for love and discernment. Philippians chapter 1, verse 9. He says, "And this I pray, that your love may abound still more and more in real knowledge and all discernment, so that you may approve the things that are excellent, in order to be sincere and blameless until the day of Jesus Christ, having been filled with the fruit of righteousness which comes through Jesus Christ, to the glory and praise of God." Philippians chapter 1, verses 9 through 11. 2 points today. Why do we need love and discernment? Not just love and not just discernment, but love and discernment. 2 points. One, you need both in order to make good decisions. And you also need both, this second point, in order to build good character. Let's look at the first part first. Paul is praying for the church. We looked at this last week. Paul is praying for the church. Last week, he talked about why he prays. He talked about his motivation to pray. He is motivated for the church at Philippi by several things. He remembers what they have already done. And he believes that God will finish what he started. And also, he loves them with the love of Jesus Christ. And all of these things, his memory, his belief, and his love motivate him to pray. Now this week, he's going to say not just why he prays, but what he prays. And it's not a bad idea, by the way, of telling people not just, hey, I'm praying for you. Tell them what you're praying for. This week, he tells us what he's praying. And what he's saying is that he's praying for love. That your love would abound more and more. He's not saying, you guys are really lousy at loving, and so I'm praying for love. He's saying, you have love, and I'm praying that you would have more love. Why? Whatever you've got, you need more. The picture is really that of a cup or a barrel. Think of a cup or a barrel. And maybe a hose is going into it, and the water is just pouring over and over. So the idea is not just to be filled, but to be filled to overflowing. Here's the idea. Don't be too easily contented when it comes to your love. This is the danger what happens when I say, hey, are you loving? And very often you'll say, of course I'm loving, and you'll think of all of the successes of your love. But we have to also think about the failures of our love too. And so consider, So if you love the people who love you, Jesus says, you don't get any special stars for that, right? Even the people who don't believe in God love the people who love them. The question is not whether or not you like people who like you. That's not hard. What the question is actually, do you love people who are unlovely, who are hard? And so if you think through that, if you think, oh, wow, what Paul's praying for is that not that I would get love, I have love, but that I would get more. And I need to get more because there's a lot of places in my life and a lot of people in my life, even though I love these people over here really well, this one over here, I give myself permission to not deal with. Right? Yeah. So you have love, but the prayer is this for more and more love. He's also praying not just for love, but also discernment. He says, real knowledge and all discernment. Here's what happens. If you have very little love, you have very little relationships. That is, your world is shrunk down. And so you don't need actually that much discernment because you only know 3 people. But if you grow in love, what will happen is your world will increase. The sense of your love will come out of you, and people will say, oh, I feel safe with you. I feel comfortable with you. Your influence will grow as your love grows. And therefore, you will need more discernment because you'll have a whole list of people that you are not just trying to love, but they're going to come to you and they're going to tell you all kinds of stuff. And your job at that point is going to be, is it true? I think I read something this week that helped me with this. Think of discernment as kind of like developing your sense of smell. When someone comes in the room, very often we judge with what we see, what our eyes see. They make a first impression physically, or what our ears hear. They told us these things. Discernment is not like eyes or ears. It's like a sense of smell. That is, there's something in the room, even though I cannot see it or hear it, but it's there. That's the sense of discernment. It's like increasing your sense of smell. Paul prays that we would have love and discernment, and he also tells us why. What does he say here? In the first chapter of Philippians, he says that this I pray that your love may abound still more and more in real knowledge and all discernment. Now he gives us why. Why do you need love and discernment? So that you may approve the things that are excellent. He does not say so that you can shut out the things that are excellent. And he does not say so that you can let in the things that are bad. He says that you can approve the things that are excellent. That's discernment and love. What happens if you have discernment without love? You've got discernment, you've got that red light going, but there's no green light in your life. What happens? You shut people out before you know them. You think you see them, I got your number, and you let them out before you even know them. Or you'll see an opportunity will come your way and you'll say, nope, too many problems, too complicated, before you've really even thought or prayed about it. Or you will leave a church because, not my scene. And you're not able to see the deeper things that are going on. What happens with a discernment is, interestingly, we often think of ourselves as very clever, so we're very discerning. And actually, we don't actually know the deeper things that are going on. If all you have is discernment, you're not very discerning. So if you have discernment without love, you shut things out. You shut people out. You shut opportunities out. You shut churches out before you even know what's going on. But what about the other way? What if you are all love, all green light all the time? Just trusting everybody at their word, just seeing them and being like, no, everyone's basically good. What happens? Well, then you're going to let in things that are unhelpful and evil. So you'll date people who are not Christians because they're cute. Or you'll say yes to opportunities because it sounded good, even though if you talk about it with your family for 2 minutes, you'll know this is a really bad idea for my family. Or you'll stay in a church long after it is clearly teaching lies because you're thinking, it's the bad. Loyalty's good, right? And so what he says is that you need love and discernment if you're going to make good decisions. That means you're going to actually let in rather than keep out things that are excellent. What happens if you have both love and discernment? Well, you will be open to people. You will give them a chance. You will see their weaknesses, and you will still give them a chance. You will also consider the pros and cons of situations. You won't just go with your guts. Some of us feel like, I got good guts, I just kind of go with my guts. Sometimes our guts are rotten, right? And we can look back and we can say, that was a bad decision. It could be a bad decision to shut somebody out, or it could be a bad decision to let somebody in. If you've got love and discernment, though, you're going to be able to see the pros and the cons. You're going to be able to let people in enough without having to go on automatic red light. Your life will have both brakes and gas in it. You're going to be able to take time to see what is good in your church, and you're also going to be able to see what's weak in it, and you will try to help. That's what happens if you have both love and discernment. If all you have is an eye toward what's going on in the church, and you can say, problem, 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 too many problems, gone. And then you go to the next church, problem, 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 problem. Right? And this is sort of we habitually do this kind of thing. It's like we're shopping at Walmart. And if that's all you have, you may feel like you're very discerning. You lack love. Because love is a kind of loyalty in it. But if all you have is love, then you may see really major, significant problems, and you're just going to kind of check out. And so we need both love and discernment in all of our relationships, and in our work, and in our churches. So here's the basic question. How are you doing with that? Which one do you think you need to grow in more right now? It's different seasons are different in our lives. And so it's not like, you're just like always in need of love or you're always in need of discernment, but there were different seasons. You may be in a season where you felt really balanced 10 years ago. But right now, the stresses in your life, the various things that are going on in your life, the Lord's asking you to grow in one area or the other. Which one is it? Some of us think that we're very discerning, and what the truth is that we're suspicious and angry. And some of us think that we're very, very loving, and what's true is that we're actually gullible and afraid. We need both love and discernment. To make good decisions, we got to have both. And so again, which one do you need most right now, and which one do you need really now? Ask the Lord even now. You may not even know. You may not have the discernment to know whether or not you need love and discernment. You can ask the Lord. What are we doing here in this passage? What is Paul doing? He's not saying, hey, get more. He's saying, I'm praying that you would get these things. Why? Ultimately, the source is the Lord. You can pray as well. Lord, would you give me these things? And if you know other people who need these things, pray for both. Pray for both. We need love and discernment in order to make good decisions. Second point is we need both love and discernment to keep good character. Come back one more time to Philippians chapter 1, verse 9. And this I pray, says Paul, that your love may abound still more and more in real knowledge and all discernment, so that you may approve the things that are excellent. Make good decisions. Now here's the second part. In order to be sincere and blameless. In order to be sincere and blameless until the day of Christ. The result of making good decisions based on love and discernment is good character. If you go through your life only ever basing it on your green light of love, you'll actually get twisted and weird. And if you do it always on discernment and never letting other people in, you will get twisted and weird in your other way. And of course, we all see people who sometimes we can see extremes in our lives. We see some people who are all discernment, and we can say, oh, their lives are so closed, they're grumpy, they're angry, they don't really let anything in, they don't enjoy anything, and we say, I want nothing to do with that, so I'm going to run over here and be all love. Or we see people who are all love and sweetness, and they've let terrible evil into their lives, and they haven't protected their children, and they haven't protected even themselves from things, and let too many things in. And we can say, because it's all like that, I'm going to run over here and be angry and suspicious. And again, what are we saying? Both love and discernment, both. In order not just to make good decisions, but in order to have good character. That is this: if you can't see things for the way they really are, if you can't see people for who they really are, with both good and bad, and situations with both good and bad, then what will happen is that you will live a life of posturing. You live a life where you have a kind of role for yourself. Oh, I'm the sweet and pleasant one, or I'm the angry and suspicious one, right? We don't necessarily say it like that, but we embody a kind of habit of the way we walk into a room and we read it and we kind of have a role for ourselves. If you want to be sincere, sincere just means inside and outside matches. When you say something, you mean it, and other people know you mean it. Blameless or pure. If you want to be like that, then you're going to need love and discernment. Every time you reject what is good, it will shape you. Think about the good things that you may have missed because you're just too closed. Every time you do that, you will shape yourself as someone who doesn't let stuff in. And then you'll be surprised that you're depressed because you're just like, there's nothing good in my life. It's because you shut it out. Every time you let something evil in, that also shapes you. Every time you let some evil thing come in, you say, well, if this looks attractive, I guess I'll jump. I guess I'll hit the button. Every time you do that, that also shapes you. Ralph Waldo Emerson famously said it this way: sow a thought, you reap an action. Sow an act, you reap a habit. Sow a habit, and you reap a character. Sow a character, you reap a destiny. Hebrews chapter 5 says it this way. It's a little bit more confrontational. Again, Paul is very pleasant with the Philippians, but there's lots of other passages around this idea in the New Testament. Hebrews chapter 5 says this in verse 12. For by this time you ought to be teachers. You need again for someone to teach you the elementary principles of the oracles of God. And you've come to need milk and not solid food. For everyone who partakes only of milk is not accustomed to the word of righteousness, for he's an infant. But solid food is for the mature, who because of practice have their senses trained to discern good and evil. Solid food is for the mature, who because of practice have their senses trained to discern good and evil. It's not solid food is for the mature who have turned 21. Age and maturity are not the same thing. I have met plenty of 12-year-olds who I would trust much more than 21-year-olds. I've met plenty of 21-year-olds who are really doing an excellent job with their lives and careful and considerate and with both filled with love and discernment than many 60-year-olds. And by the way, I've met plenty of 6-year-olds who have us all beat in terms of love and discernment as well. The point is, it's just not the same. Don't think, I used to think this when I was 12. When I'm 12, I won't worry about this anymore. Or when I'm 21, this idea will go away, or this trouble will go away. It just isn't the case. How do we get better? How do we grow? He says, by practice, you're able to discern what is good and evil. And so if you're letting in what is evil all the time, or if you're shutting out what is good all the time, then you're actually keeping yourself infantile. You need all the time milk instead of solid food. That's what he's saying. So what kind of character are you forming? That ends up being the question, right? What kind of character are you forming? Are you growing up or are you growing down? Did you know that growing down was a possibility? You didn't? No. Are you abounding more and more in love? You have love. Don't lose it, but also consider growing in it. Who do you need to love? How might you love better? My list is long. I'm too easily contented with the people in my life, and I think, oh, I'm doing pretty well as a dad. I'm doing pretty well as a husband. And I start looking at all the places where I'm doing pretty well, and I lose it's like a blind spot. I don't even think about how often I fail in love. And so it's important for us to be able to not be too contented. There's such a thing as holy discontent. There should be a sense of, I want to grow in love. I want to grow in love. Realize that every time you love, you're growing in love, and that's not just a decision. That's actually shaping a character. That is, all your decisions are in a context. You're constantly doing something. What is it? Are you becoming more and more loving, or are you becoming increasingly cold? Or are you becoming more careful and thoughtful? Over time, you're realizing that the world is kind of complicated. It's not always obvious what is the right decision. And it used to be when you were 21 years old, life seemed so simple, we talk about. And now things aren't so simple. You will have to grow to the degree that you grow up and things are more complicated. To deal with the complications in life, you will have to become more discerning. And so will I. And it doesn't really do for us to say, I just want to be, 40 years ago or 20 years ago, right? What does faithfulness look like today, now? So are you careful? Are you thoughtful? Or are you kind of in this mode of, I regularly turn off my brain? We call it arrested development. Now, some of this might seem kind of heavy and sharp to you. It is what Paul's praying for. He realizes that the church, in order to live well before the world, is going to need both love and discernment, not just one, but both. But then in verse 11, he helps us, because the danger when we start talking about, do you have love, do you have discernment, is that it can be overwhelming. Where will I get it? Don't you know where, don't you know the trouble I've had in my past? Don't you know the things I wrestle with? And so what Paul says here now is a deep comfort. Come to verse 11. Having been filled with the fruit of righteousness, which comes through Jesus Christ to the glory and praise of God. Notice he does not say filling yourself with the fruit of righteousness. This is not something that you actively can do. This is something that the Spirit of God actually does to you. You have been filled. And so here's the logic of the passage. Jesus Christ fills us with the fruit of righteousness. And what do? We in turn receive that and then grow in love and discernment. And as we grow in love and discernment, we make good decisions. We accept those things which are good and excellent. So we say no to the things that are not excellent. And then we also grow in good character so that we would be sincere and blameless. But where does it start? And that's important for us. Where does it start? This is the gospel order. First, God gives you life, and then you grow. You ever seen a baby? You don't ask a baby to grow before the baby is alive. You have life, and then life grows, and that's the order. So, what I mean is this: first salvation, and then sanctification. First salvation, and then sanctification. That's what Paul's saying here. It's the same kind of thing that he says here over in Galatians when he's talking about the fruit of the Spirit. The fruit of the Spirit comes, and he gives you love, joy, peace, patience, and all those things. But that's not me trying to if I have love, joy, peace, and patience, then I get to earn the Spirit. That gets the order all wrong. The Spirit comes first, and then he gives me that as fruit. The gospel comes into my life. Jesus Christ comes into my life. He gives me the Spirit of God, and I'm filled with the fruit of righteousness that comes through Jesus Christ. And what's the result? You will live a life of love and discernment. That's the order. So let me finish with this. How's your character these days? And what kind of decisions are you making? And what's driving you to make the decisions? That's a scary thought for some of us. We don't just make decisions, we get compulsive. We get obsessive. What's driving you to make your decisions? If you have no love and you're not growing in love, you really do need to consider if you are a Christian. Because Christians grow in this stuff. If you are alive, you will grow. And if you're not growing, you need to consider if you're alive. But say you're alive, but you're struggling, and that's a true thing too. If you're alive and you're struggling, then you need to ask, what's got in the way of my growth? And if you're concerned that that thing is too big for you, or you're concerned that that thing has just come and overwhelmed your life, here's the encouragement of this passage. What does Paul say? Again, he does not say, you guys better fill yourselves with love. You better fill yourselves with discernment. He says, this is one of the things that the Lord gives you. And as you do it, you'll get better at it. And so, and with this, let me pray for you the prayer of Paul. And this I pray, that your love may abound, still more and more in real knowledge and all discernment, so that you may approve the things that are excellent, in order to be sincere and blameless until the day of Jesus Christ, having been filled with the fruit of righteousness that comes through Jesus Christ, to the glory and praise of God the Father. Amen. Let's sing. Praise God from whom all blessings flow. Praise him, all creatures here below. Praise him above, ye heavenly host. Praise Father, Son, and Holy Ghost.